Yesterday, you read the first two readings of this poem, and I had you define words that you didn't know and then answer the questions in reading number 1. So I made a key for you so that you can kind of check your answers. This poem does not rhyme. There are some rhymes within it. So we have stumbles and tumble. But when we look for rhymes, we look for words that rhyme at the end of a line, and there is none of that. There is no meter, so this poem doesn't read in any sort of rhythm. It just reads like regular speech. And because both of these are no, the answer for is it free verse is yes. Point of view is first, and the way that we know that is he says, my father, I am bedded, I tear money. So all of those different perspectives make this first person point of view. And things we can tell about the speaker. So I have a note here. Remember that this should not be facts from the author biography, but sometimes those things in the author biography can help clarify things within the poem. So you just always want to check to make sure that the poem also agrees and it's not just the biography. So what we can tell is that the author's father was an immigrant. But he has lived a fairly comfortable financial life. So the speaker in the poem is wealthy. And that's pretty much all we can tell. It doesn't really tell us what the son does for a living, or even really what the father does for a living. But we do know that his dad probably escaped something violent. And you can see here, bread and men have been kneaded and baked together. You've heard the scream as the knife fell. So his dad probably fled something violent. As we look at the author biography, his dad came from Russia he was born in 1914. So what we can most likely conclude about his dad is that his dad fled Russia in the early 1900s during a series of revolutions. During that time, famine was really, really widespread in Russia. So a lot of people had nothing to eat, and there were actually, like armed protests trying to get things as simple as bread. The inflation of Russian money was really high at that time, so people couldn't afford food. A lot of people dying of starvation in the early 1900s in Russia. And then there was a communist revolution in 1917, a lot of violence there. There was a similar uprising in 1905. So his dad probably fled from that sort of a life. The words that I thought 8th graders most likely would not know or would need a bit of clarification on were emigrant, bedded, anguish, leisure, and channels. So emigrant's a person who leaves their country to live in another country. Bedded means like settled down to go to bed. Anguish is severe physical or mental pain or suffering. Leisure is use of free time for enjoyment, and channels is a moving stream of water. So as we look at the next reading, what you should do next is this words and phrases from the poem. So I want you to look for words that are related to the speaker, not necessarily words that describe the speaker, but words that are related to him and words that are related to the speaker's father. So let's take a look here at the poem. So it says, my father brought the emigrant bundle of desperation and worn threads that in anxiety as he stumbles, tumble out distractedly. So words that I would associate with a father are things like emigrant, desperation, worn, anxiety, distractedly. All of those words are words that we would associate with the dad. So I wrote those down here under speaker's father. And then we're going to look at words that might describe the speaker himself. So while I am bedded upon soft green money that grows like grass. So we could say bedded, soft, green, grows. So what you should start to see as you list these words, and you can do that for the rest of the poem as well, you should start to see a tone that is very different. So we have bedded, soft, green, grows versus emigrant, anxiety, desperation, worn, distracted. Totally different perspectives and lives that we see shaping up here. And then we can look at the section right here where he lists out a whole bunch of different comparisons. So we have, I'm just going to paste it down here so I have it to reference. So he says that between the two of them, there is a vast continent of what they describe differently. So the sun sees breezes, shadows, small lakes, and hills, where the dad sees storms, darkness, rough channels, and mountains. So as they are looking at the same thing, this continent between them, one is seeing breezes and the other is seeing storms. One is seeing shadows and the other is seeing darkness. Everything that the father sees is a more pessimistic, cynical, extreme version of what the son is seeing. And it's kind of how they see the world. So the son sees things as, minor obstacles that would be fairly easy to overcome, where the father sees everything as insurmountable, impossible to climb over, or very difficult to get through. And that's probably because of their backgrounds. So the father has experienced really terrible things and the son has had a fairly easy life. So they have different perspectives on the world, and that creates this continent between the two of them, this big obstacle between the two of them that keep them separated. So down here, you'll kind of draw a conclusion about what the author is saying about the speaker's life and the statement that he's making about the father's life. So kind of look at the two different sets of words and draw a conclusion about what the poem is saying about each of their lives. And then down here, just on a separate sheet of paper, you can pick one of these images. You only have to choose one and draw it. So make sure that you don't leave out details. So like if you decide to do that one that we just talked about and you draw a continent between the two of them, make sure that you represent both the breezes and the storms, the shadows and the darkness, the small lakes and the rough channels. So your drawing should be fairly detailed. I really want you to be able to picture this imagery because that'll help you figure out what it means too. So what the author is trying to get you to understand through the images. So just choose one and you'll draw it down here. You can, if you want to, try to do it with your cursor. I would recommend that you grab a separate sheet of paper and draw it and then just upload the picture or email it to me so that I can see it that way. I think it would be pretty difficult for you to try to that doesn't work very well. So just draw it on a separate sheet of paper. And then you will be working on the races prompt for this. So that is under the same assignment posting. So the question, once you've done all of the other pieces, the question should be pretty easy. How does the author's word choice portray the lives of the speaker and his father differently? The most valuable thing that you can use to brainstorm and get ready for this is that contrast chart. So here is the word choice, and you've already drawn the conclusion down here about how their lives are portrayed differently. So what you should do is use some of the words that the author uses to describe the father and the speaker. Here's the speaker, here's the father. So you'll cite some of those words that you found and then explain what those words show about each of the men's lives, and show how they're different. So as you describe the speaker's kind of easy, calm life, you can contrast it with the father's negative, violent, difficult life. You'll submit this when you finish it, and you will also submit the Europe and America 4 readings here as well. If you do draw on a separate sheet of paper, you can take a picture and add it before you submit it. If you have any questions on any of this, you can email me. This is one of the more difficult poems that we've read so far because it's so image dense. So let me know if you are struggling with any part of it.